welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm on my way to visit my parents, and I'm going to tell you all about my weekend with the Women Drivers Social Club up in kind of Leicestershire. So around October time last year, I started thinking about what to do for the Women Drivers Social Club kind of winter meet. I guess more traditionally people would think of it as kind of a Christmas meetup, but when I posed some dates to the group, a lot of people were more in favour of spacing out a little bit from the NEC event and it being in January, giving everyone something to look forward to in January and something to keep January positive and happy, because it can be a pretty tough month, and also it can be a pretty quiet month for classic car events. So I looked into a couple of venues, and quite a few of the women on the group had taken their cars over summer along to Stonehurst Farm's Motor Museum and kind of evening classic car meets. So I thought it looked like a really fabulous location. They'd got some really fantastic pictures there, and it looked like a great place to go. And they also had a farm shop and a little cafe and things, so stuff that was going to be indoors for what was set to be probably quite a cold time of year, and I was right. So we got in touch with them. They were really helpful over emails. We got organised with it being a lovely buffet lunch all organised, and a trip round the motor museum, and plenty of space for us all to come along. So the meet proved really popular in terms of getting tickets out there. It was our most popular in terms of ticket sales and also attendance. So that was fantastic. We had 24 women come along to the event, and a variety of cars. Some people in their moderns because things were wrapped up and away for winter or having a load of work done on them, and some of us out in our classics enjoying what was actually probably one of the first dry days of the year. So for me, it was about an hour and a half away. So I met up with my sister, who was a little bit further south than me, at Peterborough Services, which we know can be problematic for Peggy, but we got there with plenty of time and also got out of there with no issue, which was Peggy's previous issue the last time we stopped and met someone at Peterborough Services in the summer. But no problems there. Went up a little bit on the A1 and then across the A47, and then a few lovely back roads in convoy with my sister in her Hillman, California. We arrived with plenty of time. We'd set off a little bit early because there was a lady coming over from Ireland who had stayed over at her partner's house and then had got the train, and we were supposed to be picking her up from the train station, but because of a load of train delays, it turned out that it was going to be quicker and easier for her to get a taxi from the stop before and things like that. So we arrived with plenty of time, and when I'd sent out my kind of pre-meet email to everyone the night before, one of the attendees emailed me back and said, "Oh, do you need a map of the places that are flooded in the area, because I'm quite local?" And I was like, "Oh, fantastic, yeah, that would be really useful." And they'd said, "Oh, my family owns the farm," and I assumed, oh, maybe like an uncle and aunt or whatever owned the farm. But when we turned up on the Saturday, that member, Zoe, was there setting up, putting a couple of signs out for us and setting up, and it turns out that her and her sister are both in the group, and also it is their dad that owns the farm, and a few of the cars that are in the collection are ones that they regularly use, so that was really good. And quite a small world, because it turns out that I'd been organising all of this. They joined through completely different means, with one of our members suggesting that they join, and had then found out that we were kind of hosting a meet with them. So really an unusual thing to have happened, but it worked out really well for us in the end. So me and my sister must have got there about 10 to 10, with the event really starting at about 10:30. So that meant that we could get ourselves parked up, get the flag up, and also be there in case anyone arrived early. So Marion, who had got the train in, was indeed quite a bit earlier because of the switch to using the taxi. And we also had Sarah, who arrived in her Toyota Sarah. And then I think the next to arrive must have been Katie, who you might know as Wrenching Wench on YouTube, and she managed to get George out successfully, which is always fantastic. And I'd never managed to meet George, so that was nice to get him out and to an event. And then behind that, in our little lineup, must have been Claire and Mush, and then we had Claire Atkinson, then we had Hannah, who had actually got her ticket from Miss Hubner, Carly. Carly had got a ticket for the event, but unfortunately was unable to come along at last minute, so had really kindly offered the ticket up for free to anyone who wanted to come along. And Hannah was reasonably local and decided that she would like to come along, so she came along in her lovely Volvo and had a great day. And I think it was a really nice example of the sisterhood kind of coming together and helping each other out, and passing on something good when something that you didn't really want to happen, and missing out on an event being that in this case happens, and trying to make positive out of it. So that was nice. And then we had Yayan and Tash, and then Matty and Faye came in their little Wolseley, and we had Vicky and her friend Sarah, who came in Vicky's really lovely Ford Consul Capri, which I'd never seen before, but I had seen pictures of, and it was really gorgeous and just so very American styling, but tiny, which is really cute. Steph from I Drive a Classic in her Proton, and then we had Tamsin, who had come along in her Modern, and Julia and Elizabeth, who had come in a Modern as well, but they'd come all the way from kind of down in Guildford, Surrey area, so quite a trip in the morning, but hopefully a well worthwhile time making the trip to hang out with us. So I think we were all mostly there by kind of about 11 o'clock, and of course Tess and Zoe live on the farm, so they were there with plenty of time as well, and very kindly their dad had offered to show us around the collection and give us a bit of a talk and a bit of a tour of everything. So we started off by going around the motor museum and having a look at that, looking at all the fantastic cars, and also the horse-drawn cart that had been there, and the very first bus in Leicestershire, which we will come back to in a little bit. And it was just really, really lovely, and it was they were so welcoming of us, really appreciated our enthusiasm, allowed us to kind of hop over some of the roping that was up, just so that we could get a bit more close and personal with some of the cars that were on display, and have a look at some of the other little bits and bobs that were there. And I think that really lasted us until just after 12 o'clock, a really decent look round and talk and tour really of the collection. And then we were offered a ride out on their historic bus. And the bus is the first bus to have ever come to Leicestershire. So it was originally a London bus. It's over 100 years old, and the bus drove up when it had finished its time in London and had been commissioned to do Leicestershire with the driver. The driver spent 2 weeks up in Leicestershire teaching people how to drive the bus, because they'd never had a vehicle before to drive. And then it became the first bus in Leicestershire, well, first motorised bus, I guess. And they found it and restored it and put it back together and use it pretty regularly. So we split off into kind of 2 groups of 12 and had a little ride round the village on the bus. It was a fantastic experience. The first group had a really smooth running trip, and me on the second group got to experience a breakdown. But the fantastic thing about cars that are that old and that simple is that we were back up and running in no time, and barely had time to think about the fact that things hadn't gone to plan, and it was actually quite exciting. I was lucky enough to be sat right on the front with the driver as well, so whilst it was absolutely freezing, it was a fantastic experience. And the bus is obviously hugely popular with the locals, as it was getting lots of waves and thumbs up as we drove through the village from people who seemed to be pretty familiar with the bus going out and doing little trips like that. And that got us all back to the farm just in time for our lovely buffet lunch. They'd set us up with a lovely cosy room upstairs above their tea shop, and we had a beautiful spread of the food from the farm, and everyone tucked in, had a fantastic time. But also, because we couldn't possibly finish all the food, we were given some lovely little goodie boxes to pack up anything we wanted to take home to try and prevent waste, which is amazing, and so thoughtful, and also so good for the environment. And then we were fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to go around the farm. It is usually extra, but because they were so excited to have us, I guess, they were really kind to let us go around the farm as well, which turned out to be, I think, a highlight for everyone, as they'd got some 2-day-old piglets and some other very young piglets, and the opportunity to feed sheep and goats and donkeys and reindeers and guinea pigs and little rabbits and everything. So a really nice little way to kind of round off the day, spend a bit of time chatting and hanging out with everyone before it was time for people to start heading off. And it did take a little bit of manoeuvring, as people were all kind of lined up in the nice little spot between the 2 buildings that make up the motor museum, with the local fuel pumps and stuff like that they'd got on display, which made for some great photos, but meant that when people wanted to leave before other people, we had to be quite clever with some reversing and manoeuvring the cars about a bit. I think me and my sister must have set off around 4 o'clock after getting a couple of little bits and bobs from the farm shop before that closed, and then making the kind of trek back. Both of our cars behaved impeccably, and it was quite a nice drive back across the A47 and then down. It was a really brilliant day out, and I'm so grateful to all of the women that turned out for the event, and for the Duffin family who run Stonehurst Farm, who were so brilliantly welcoming and made it such a brilliant day for us, and allowed us to have such great fun on the buses, in the museum and in the farm, and allowed us the kind of space to be able to celebrate what will be the 2nd year of the Women Drivers Social Club that we're going into now. We've got some more exciting stuff coming up for the club, and it's been so much fun to put on these events and have something to look forward to each kind of time another thing comes up. And the group is growing. It was our most well attended event, and I think everyone had a good time, which is always really rewarding when you've spent some time putting an event on. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing about our little adventure, and me and Peggy's first adventure out of 2024. We did do a small little run to Tesco just down the road on the Friday, just to check everything was kind of running and happy and at that. But really, this was our first big trip out of 2024, and a really special one, I think. A nice way to start the year. Obviously, it would have been nice to get out a bit sooner than that and to feel well enough, but I am on the mend, so that's great. I'm feeling a lot better, and obviously back out and about now. If you've not been to Stonehurst Farm and you are kind of vaguely local to the Loughborough, Leicester area, it's in Mount Surrey area, and it's a fantastic place to go and visit. But also in the summer, once a month, they have evening meets where you can go along, and they have food and drink and stuff as well. And it's just a nice way to kind of extend the day out and perhaps enjoy a little adventure in your classic car over summer. And so many of the women went along to those things last year and had a fantastic time. And that was why we got in touch with them to see if we could host this event there. So I highly recommend going along to one of them. It sounds like a fantastic thing. And if I get a chance over summer and the dates all line up, then perhaps I'll have to make a trip that way as well. But I really hope you've enjoyed listening. Thank you ever so much for listening this week. In the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.